a Baptist boy with his Baptist parents. Then later on, I was moved to Lagos to stay with my, at a very young age, to stay with my grandmother, who was a Muslim. So I practiced Islam for a longer part. And then later on, at some point, I gained admission to Mayflower Junior School, Ikene, under Tai Sholari, who was an atheist. All right, so in school, I had to be an atheist. At home, I have to be a Muslim. And during the holidays, I have to be a Christian, and so imagine all that on a young child. So primary school, like I said, in school, you're not allowed to hold Bible. You're not allowed to talk about God. Sundays are for all manner of things. And then, like I said, so having done that for 3 months of atheism, then I won't go home. I stay with my grandmother, who is Muslim. And then I practice Islam for a while. And then maybe for 1 or 2 weeks when I go to visit my parents, I practice Christianity. So that was the tripod, of my life of religion for me growing up. And of course, since I was not established and grounded in any of these things, so I didn't take any of them serious, because whether atheism, I didn't have enough time to practice it. Whether Islam, I didn't have enough time to practice it. And Christianity too, I didn't have enough time to practice. So for me, it was just like a show of all manner of philosophies and psychology, really, until, so as I began to develop, I began to realize, my own identity, found out that none of those things, it didn't appeal to me. Christianity didn't appeal to me again. I'd been too far from it. Even though my parents were Christian and all that, then I went to secondary school. I think I lost it from primary school. For my primary school days, I joined all manner of gangs and things, exposed to pornography and sexuality very early, maybe from primary 3, thereabout. Fightings, because we are in a boarding primary school, you have to defend yourself. So I'm about to defend myself and fight for myself almost all along. So when a child has to fight for himself and defend himself, you get tough. Something has to down your inside to live, for you to survive, because you have to be comfortable with violence at some point. So I think after a while, I had to get comfortable with violence, having to defend myself against seniors, against people that want to take your thing. So of course, I entered secondary school, and from there, I got into very terrible set of people. I wasn't into drugs in primary school. I was just into violence. But by secondary school, I was already into drugs, very early. And then later on, I became, by the time I was in SS class, I was already friends with a lot of cultists. I was like some sort of armor bearer for cult. I had not joined them, but an armor bearer was someone who they kept their weapons with when they're in trouble. So even though I was in secondary school, they used to keep their weapons in my house, in case student union, government wants to come and search their homes, and then arrest cultists. So they used to keep their things in my house, and then they come to pick it when there is a fight or there is something. So I was some sort of an armor bearer for them, so of course, getting into the university, I knew my path was already set in life, I was going to join those people. I really wanted, it wasn't like they forced me. Some people were forced. I know some of my friends were forced into cultism and all that, but me, I wasn't forced. I wanted to be there. I looked forward to it. Like I said, early in life, I was accustomed to violence. So from primary school, so secondary school, I always had to fight, and then my street in Yanopaja, where I grew up, it was always, bloody. So, so drugs just helped to enhance the person. The time bomb in me then was already ticking, and all that. So, and then, so I was in the university, a bit of pre-degree in Lautech, and all that. And then from there, I got shipped off to Obafemi Awolowo University to continue my cultist quest, as it were, I had only one goal in life then. The only goal was to really, really be a Don. That was the only goal. That was the only thing I was living for, and that was the only thing. That's the truth. I couldn't see beyond that, for some reason that I couldn't explain. So I wish I could explain why that was, but, I don't know why, but that was the only thing I wanted to be. The only thing I wanted to be was to be the head of the cult And I was so determined that whoever was in front of me, I was going to take them out and become it, and all that. And so I was shipped off to Obafemi Awolowo University. And on getting there was when one night I had gone to take some drugs, and then I think my mind was already messed up. And so I stepped into this amphitheater in Ife. And that was the night that a fellowship called Christ Love Fellowship was having their services. And for me then, I thought it was a show. I thought it was a club. And so I walked in, and to the glory of God, the man of God was ministering that night. I was not even listening to what he was saying. That's the sincere truth. I didn't, at least before a man is convicted, at least he has to hear something. For me, I didn't hear anything. That was sincere truth. I didn't hear one jack word that he said that night. I was more focused on the girls, the ushers that were moving up and down in church. That's the truth, And so they were the one. And then for some reason, after the end, the man gave an altar call for salvation. And another thing that I couldn't explain in my life as at the moment was the fact that I just found out that without any message that I heard, I was convicted. And that's the power of the Holy Spirit, really. I just found myself crying and crying. I was crying, and this is what is funny. I was crying, not because I sincerely felt sober. That's the truth. Because if I felt sober, I shouldn't be questioning why I was crying, because I was crying, and then I was asking myself, stop this nonsense. Don't embarrass us here. So it wasn't like I felt like, but something, definitely the power of God had taken hold on a part of me that was unexplainable. But so there was still a part of me that was still alive, that was fighting, that was struggling not to go out that night. I mean, the man of God kept saying, come forward. I still remember it was Pastor Yinka, we used to call him Pastor Y. So that was preaching that night. So come out, he kept saying, come out, come out, come out. I was the only one that gave my life to Christ that night. I remember I for some reason, that thing just picked me up from my seat, and started dragging me down towards the altar. I was struggling and struggling, but I just couldn't sit down again. Now that I'm a believer, I understood what happened, that many believers sincerely had been praying for me. Many believers had been praying for me. I remember after I gave my life to Christ, somebody traveled down from Kaduna to come and see me. And he said, since SS2, they had been praying for me, that God would save me, and that they never stopped, because of how my life was. And I know my mom was really, really an intercessor. Many people were praying for me. So that night, the prayers of the saints had gotten to a crescendo, that it doesn't matter what I wanted to do again, they had, by intercession, created a pathway for God to operate in my life. And that was it. The force of the Spirit picked me up, and then I gave my life to Christ. That was the journey. So that's where I am now. So I think I took it from where I am to where I am.
What a beautiful story. What a beautiful story. You know what? I'm so excited. It looks as though, God just unpicked for us personalities that can connect with some set of young people in our nation today.
Wow.
When we're just led to do this, not like we have personal relationship. I remember it was Fale that I reached out to Pastor Ibiko, and I told him, I need to reach out to Pastor Miwa. I don't know what. It's just so strong in me that I need him to come on this platform to share with us on conversations, so that so young people can know that where they are, it's not as if nobody had passed that road before. They are not like doomed because they are on a path. There's a possibility, and there's a very high degree of possibility that somebody has passed that road before and is ready to unfold them away from that path of destruction into the path we ought to walk into. And I'm so excited about this.
Thank you, ma'am.
I want to ask, after that experience for you, as a young person, what are those defining moments in your life that brought you to this point and this place where you're doing the things you're doing today?
All right. Thank you, ma'am, for that question. Well, after I gave my life to Christ that day, I left, I made a mistake. I didn't find out what the name of that church was. I just became a Christian. I gave my life to Christ. I went, they took my contact sincerely. But I didn't even give them my real room number, because you know how it is that a young believer is still not too far from a non-believer in behavior sometimes. That is still, so I just didn't want to tell the truth about where I was living. So I gave them the room number of one of my friends in Awo. I'm sorry, in this hostel, part one hostel in Ife. Angola. Okay. Yes, yeah, in Angola. But I lived in Awo. I know that. So because I go there a lot truly, but I was in my room. But I knew it was my friend, it was Angola, that I gave them. And well, cut long story short, it was next Sunday throughout the week. What just coming to my mind that I say, oh, okay, so now you have become that thing, that bonnet thing that everybody's doing, because I just didn't understand what the whole thing was about. I was just like, okay, so you have become bonnet now. I had that born again thing that everybody, that your folks have always been talking about. So what do you do? What's the next phase of your life? What are you supposed to do with this thing? Okay, now that you've come out, you've said, now, sincere truth, after that, I was still smoking. After I came out that night, I was still smoking. I still had some of the habits that I had, which are some of the things I was to talk about if we get there. Because the new life, new converts, new life doesn't totally change your behavior until you are transformed, by the renewal of your mind, So 1 week I wasn't transformed. Now, for some people, in all honesty, a miracle happens immediately. They give their life to Christ and everything stops, But if that is not happening in your own life, oh, come on, you are not out of balance. So I was still smoking, I was still whatever, but sincerely, I knew something had changed. And I'll tell you why. Because I used to smoke a lot, I used to take drugs a lot. But this time around, after that night, I started feeling bad when I did those things. Before, I used to feel bad. So for the first time, I would do those things and I would feel condemned. I would feel bad. I would feel like I was hurting somebody. I would feel like I was doing, so I knew something, that there was a change on my inside that my outside had not caught up with. My outside had not caught up, but something was already happening within me, So so on Sunday, following that, whatever, so I thought, okay, this is Sunday morning. Those who are Christians, I noticed that they always go to church on Sunday, because I'd been far a lot from Christianity things. So like, they go to church on Sunday morning. So, well, cut long story short, I picked my Bible. I didn't know anybody that I could ask. So I just started walking around OAU, just walking around until I got to a Greek. I just say area. I'm sorry if I'm using, for those of you who are not from OAU, but I'm just trying to recount my journey, and I needed to remember how those things happened. So I just say it's like a lecture theater in Obafemi University that a fellowship in Ife then called Castle, used to use. And so I walked there, and I remember I stepped in. Then there was a man by the name Pastor Edgar. So and he was the one preaching that day. Another solid man of God, another. But for me then, I was a young believer, I was a young Christian, so I couldn't connect to his message as at that time. Not because he was doing anything wrong, but because, you see, I've been far too gone into cultism, clubbing, and all that. And he was speaking to serious-minded Christians. So, he was using, he was using a lot of scriptures, he was using a lot of deep things that it was speaking above my head as a young believer. So because I couldn't connect, I picked my Bible and I left, sincerely, where for some reason I've always been like that. I really don't like being in an environment. I don't like to pretend, I could have stayed there throughout that service, but I just felt, I don't think I'm receiving anything here. Why do I want to stay to the end of this meeting? So, and everything like that, like I said, now that I'm older, I'm sure I will have enjoyed that message, but because I was a young convert, a young convert can't relate to too many depths at once. And all that. I was coming from darkness. The intensity of light they were shining in my eyes was too big, was too much at that level. So they needed to give me my lights in small bits, for my pupil to adjust to that level of light. So I stood up and I walked out of church. So I started playing with flowers. I still remember what I was doing. I took a stick and I was beating all the hibiscus flower around that area, and then a guy who used to know me from Lautech, his name is BC Alao. So the guy saw me on the road holding a Bible, and he knew the kind of person I was. So he said, "Hey, you're holding a Bible?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What happened to you?" I said, "Well, last week Sunday night, I went out, I gave my life to Christ, that thing that they say, that born again thing." So he was laughing. We're like, "Okay, definitely you still don't know how this thing works." So we're like, "So what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I came to one church around there. I don't understand what the guy is saying." and all that. So he was laughing. He was like, I understand that, you know. So we're like, would you like to follow me somewhere? I was like, where? He said, I'm going to a church. I said, okay, all right, maybe I'll follow you, since that boy too was a club boy. I was a cultist, but he was a club boy. So our lives were similar, except that clubbing was more of partying rather than violence, you know, while cultism was more about violence. So he took me to a place in Obafemi Awolowo University's conference center. So when I got to conference center, they were having a problem. It was a church but I didn't know at the time it was a church, because I saw the way people were dressed. The ladies were wearing Sanchos, they were wearing bikers, they were wearing hats. You know, everybody was like, it felt like they were, I was like, okay. And he said, this is the church. I was like, church, you know. All right. So we walked into the church. I noticed that even the guys, they were all wearing hats, like cowboy hats. They were wearing, you know, the way they were dressed, I could relate coming from where I was coming from and all that. So I asked him, I said, is this a church? He said, yeah, it's a church. I was like, okay, I think I like this place. And then they started singing and all that, you know, maybe kind of environment that deep Christians wouldn't, you see, that's one thing I've learned. There is a church for everyone, really. And that's why we shouldn't be critical about what God is doing in any assembly, you know, and everything. I'm more matured in some things now, and I have learned that there's a church for everyone. It doesn't matter what you think about a church. That church exists because of some people that you don't understand. And the only wise God has made it so. I mean, deep Christians will have hated the church that I actually found home in my new life. And just the same way I couldn't connect with a sound church in just a few minutes ago. And I walked into this church and I saw the atmosphere, such excellence, such everything. I was like, yeah. And then the pastor came up, and I said, you know, it's been almost 21 years now. I can preach the message that man preached. He was so simple. He used just 2 verses of the Bible and went from story to story to story to story. I could understand every word he said. And I told myself, I said, this is my church from now on. You know, so I went to meet him. I told him about my struggles, you know, my struggles and everything like that. And he said, don't worry. Now, I think the key element that really, really helped me to where I am now is the trust that pastor reposed in me as a young, struggling believer. Because I told him about my struggle with pornography, my struggle with sex, with drugs and everything like that, expecting the way an average Christian react.
Yes, will condemn and judge.
And I was shocked at how he was laughing at everyone I was saying. So I was like, is this guy even a Christian at all? Doesn't he understand the things I just told him I'm struggling with? And he just laughed. He just called the same guy that brought me. He said, BC, he said, Muyiwa, you know, he said, Muyiwa is the young convert. You know, he has some struggles. And he told the guy, say, you know, those things won't last, right? He said, don't bother about what he's struggling with, what he's smoking and what he's not smoking. He said, let's just bother about him working with God. Those things will stop eventually. And all that. And he just said, do me a favor, BC, go and take me a while to pray every morning. And then take me a while to study the book of Romans every morning. He said, that's all. So I was like, you won't give me 34 principles and 48 rules, you know, and, you know, on how to stop this thing. He said, no, nothing really. Just do what BC tells you to do. And that's how my journey. Now, to cut long story short, do you know this pastor was very, 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 very one kind? Very one kind in the sense that he knew my struggles, yet he trusted me to be an usher in church. Now, that for me was something I would never recover from. And I was like, this man knows I'm struggling with Indian hemp. And so there were mornings and on Sundays I would come to church, I haven't smoked Indian hemp, and he would tell me to go and usher. And he would smell my mouth and knows that. And I'm like, what's he doing? Why is he doing all this? And then he would tell me, well, don't worry, okay? He said, your own struggle is just more profound. He said, if you were to x-ray the life of everybody here, they probably have something that they are struggling with that is more socially acceptable than your own. Yours is just not socially acceptable. And all that. He said, don't worry. He said, you're going to get better. I just want you to just know about it. So he was really there for me. And not because, never condemned. It was always just, you know, teaching me. You know what? I just realized, I wish I could tell you this was the day I stopped those things. I can't, just like he said. But I just realized 3, 4, 5, or 6 months after, everything began to drop away from me. It just began to drop. No principle, no rule, just like he said, just work with God. And, you know, and now that I'm more matured, I can understand what he was trying to do. The Bible says, walk in the spirit and you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So what he was trying to make me do to make sure that my walking in the spirit was consistent and that eventually the loss of the flesh, and that is exactly what happened. I can't put a date to when those things stopped, but I just know that, see, I just woke up and I did not feel like smoking. I woke up, I didn't feel like masturbating. I didn't feel like having sex. I didn't feel like, and all those things began to drop off me. And sincerely, it's been 20 years now that so most of those things I've left my life and all that, because somebody, trusted me. Those are things. So I think if I was to point out on two things, I will point out number one, the trust of a pastor and the companionship of a good Christian. That is BCLO. I think those are two things that I can point out has helped me, because it would be unfair not to mention in my journey the role that those two things played in my life. The trust of a pastor who did not condemn me and who understood that I was struggling and I was going to get better, and who trusted me even with responsibilities when he knew where I was, when he knew my struggles. And then the companionship of a strong Christian, not a weak Christian, because if BC was a weak Christian, I could have actually dragged him down into my life. Yes, but because he was a stronger believer, his companionship was there to hold my hand, because my pastor was busy, he couldn't be there with me every day. But he put a companion with me, and I think those two things were really helpful to my journey.
Okay, awesome. Now, what I'm gleaning from what you're sharing about this funny moment is you got to that point in your life where the whole world are judged and condemned, but you got into a space where you were not judged, you weren't condemned, but you were given love, you were given trust.
Yes.
They had faith in you, even when you were doubting yourself, when you couldn't see what they were seeing.
Yes.
And they give you that kind of trust and that kind of faith. How has that accumulated into the experience that you're having today? How you mentor, how you counsel, how you actually lead other people?
Thank you, man. That's a beautiful question. In many times, I always say that I feel like the reason Christians are very judgmental and sententious is because of what they received themselves. It is difficult for you. I don't think Christians intentionally want to be. Is that when they became a Christian, what they received was judgment and sentences. And so because of what a vessel receives, what a vessel can pour out. And now that, for me, I didn't receive that. So it's difficult for me to pour it out now that I'm a pastor. What I received was trust and love. So I don't, sincerely, man, I don't even know how else to live, because I never got judgment. So I don't even know how to give it. So I'm not even trying. I'm not trying to believe in people. I just believe it's almost automatic for me because of the kind of people. And I think this is instrumental for us as pastors, as leaders, as even people that mentor people, to realize that whatever you give to a child, both spiritual child and physical child, that is what they will know to give to other people. I was a spiritual child that received love. I was a spiritual, if you notice, children that come from violent homes, they end up becoming violent because that's what they received. That's even biologically and all that. So, and the same way, children that come from sententious and judgmental churches, when I mean children, I'm talking about young convert, born again, they end up also becoming judgmental and sententious, and for me, so I'm grateful to God. Now, I mean, when people come to tell me now and they say, Pastor Miwa, I'm struggling with this, I'm just always laughing. The same way my pastor was laughing, and something happened. I found that, man, that even when I was in Ife then, and later on, I started pastoring, because eventually the same people that God used to help me stop, I eventually became a pastor in that place. I found out that I was having counseling meetings from different churches in Ife. People who were attending other churches, who were struggling with habits, they will call me. I don't know how they get my phone number. Then they will say, Pastor Miwa, I need to talk to you. Somebody said you are the only person I can talk to. And then they will come to meet me and they will say, I'm an usher here, I'm a choir. And I say, oh, go talk to your pastor. And I say, I can't talk to him. And for me, that was major. But someone said, I can talk to you. And all that. And because when they talked to me, it was easy for me to listen. And yet there were some of them that when they talked to me, throughout, I would listen for maybe 1 hour. When they finish, I'll just say, let's pray. And then they expect, and I just said, let's pray. I said, don't worry. You'll get over it. We will put, and a number of them truly did get over it. At least I know where some of them are right now. So it has become it has become my own signature to ministry because of what some people did to me and all that. So when people tell me now, if sometimes some of my people I pastor now and everything like that, they do things and then I hear of them and all that, while it's necessary to feign and form some level of disciplinary measures, which is good because the Bible commands that. But you see, it is done in love because really the essence is not to kill. The Bible spoke about Jesus. He said he would not put out a struggling, fire, and all that. It will not smolder, and all that. Yeah. So that means when a fire is trying to grow, if you kill it, it may never become a flame, So usually it has sincerely, it has become a major part of my life because of what I received. Sometimes, just about some weeks ago, one of my leaders came to meet me and told me about somebody in the unit that did this and this and that. And I said, leave them alone. I said, you cannot pray for the rain and not deal with the mud. If you pray for the rain, then you must deal with the mud. If you want to pastor young people, you must know that with young people come certain struggles. So if you pray for the rain, then you must deal with the mud. If you're pastoring part 1, part 2, there are things that come with that age. They're the age of adventure, sexual adventure, drugs adventure, and what a pastor must do must learn how to help them rather than how to condemn them. So I said, don't worry, and because I've seen many of them come out of those lifestyles. I've seen many of them become something. And so yes, what I received as a young believer, I don't even know how not to give that same thing, which is mercy, love, and faith in people.
Yeah, that is so beautiful and very instructive because, one of the things, while you were speaking, one of the things that kept coming to my heart is, that is why it's so important that we have the right people mentor the next generation. If we're complaining about the present generation we're living in, saying, people are judgmental, we have a generation of people that don't care, that don't love, that don't have faith in anything, then we should ask, who gave birth to this generation?
Yes.
That gave birth to this generation, how did they bet them? Because it's critical in the betting process. It's whatever you give out to them that they will be produced.
Yes.
So, and that's why it looks as if, God is intentional about the next generation, and he's saying, you know what, I don't want this thing to continue. So I want to truncate this process. I want to make sure that there's a deliberateness in betting, and I believe that's one of the things that you're doing in Citizen of Light Church, because I know some people that are actually there. If for anybody, Pastor Ibukufale, I know him as somebody that is so concerned about the younger generation and growing. There's a difference between doing something as an obligation and actually being deliberate and intentional. And you're actually pouring of yourself, and you can't give what you don't have. If you don't have it, you can't give it, you can't fake it. So you have to give of your fullness, of what is inside of you. And I believe that's what we're having this conversation. And for every young person listening, this is so important. I've told several young people around me, it's not enough to say that, the society that we live in, so many bad things are happening. You can change the narrative. There's always an alternative choice. You are not boxed in the circle of, okay, this is what is trending. You can actually come out and stand alone or stand apart from the crowd. So I'm sure Pastor Olumuyiwa's story is really giving us insight and wisdom into how to live separate. How to make it so people can be judgmental, they can condemn and do all that. But it's important we give faith, trust, and love. So instructive. Thank you, sir. That will lead me to the next question. I've engaged with some young people, and they will tell you, how I wish I was from, Dangote's family. I wish I was born by Otedola or Adenuga, or was born by Jakes. Or I was just born separate from this family. My problem is this family. If I was born in a separate family, I don't think my life would be going the way it is going. Now, I want to ask, should young people blame their families for the outcomes in their lives? And did your own kind of family affect in any way your life? Did it contribute to your person? Did it negatively or positively? I want you to talk to us about it.
Thank you, Mark. I feel the truth is, at certain age, you might feel like that at certain age, but I think at another age, we shouldn't feel like that. What I mean is that at certain age, when someone is young, it's an age where responsibilities are shifted. And then at certain age, when we are old, is a stage when responsibility should be accepted. So if we shifted responsibility at a young age, it should be accepted at an older age. When I was young, I remember I mentioned the fact that I was shipped off, to live with my grandmother, who was a Muslim and all that. And maybe I can say, because I looked at some of my other siblings that stayed with my parents, who lived in that Christian confines of my dad and my mom, who, even though they were Baptists, they were not Pentecostals. I found out that they turned out a bit differently from me. I found out that they turned out a bit different from how I turned out. My younger brother is, for him, is a totally different. His own life was totally different from mine. He was that boy that loved God, served God, served several ministers of God. Later on, now he's pastoring somewhere in South Africa now, and everything like that. The same father, the same mother, but the differences in the environment affected us. Because for me, I was shipped off out of that protective Christian environment where values were inculcated, and they're not just inculcated, instilled, and discipline was instilled. To an Islamic environment whereby, my grandmother was really never at home because she was a contractor and she was quite busy. She had money, but sometimes money comes business, because it takes some level hand. So she goes to a lot of places. And then when she couldn't handle me being at home alone, was why she took me to a boarding primary school. That if I stay alone all day, maybe she should take me to a place where some other people can be responsible for me. And I think that played a major role in me losing it totally. Because at that instance, it is now seniors that became my inspiration. At that instance, it became my mates who were together. I'm in school, for 10 months in a year, and with my colleagues. We're primary 2 students, we're primary 4 students. They were the inspiration. We were not watching TV or anything. So if I see somebody do something bad, they were the one that inspired me how to do those things and all that. Unlike if I was with my parents, that I go and all that. So I said this, that truly at certain age, it might be true. But at certain age, it is no longer true. In the sense that when you get to a certain age and you are still looking back and saying it was because this, it was because that, and all that, that this happened, and why did I say at certain age it might be true? Because I feel like while we're speaking to younger people, I feel like we should also know that young people will become older someday, and to know that paying attention to family also matters. So that's the balance of what I'm trying to also bring, that we shouldn't neglect home. We shouldn't neglect home because it can affect greatly, the influences. So I won't say it's my parent that causes it or my brother, but it's because I was exposed to some influences outside of my parents. If the only influence I was exposed to my parents, I probably have turned out like my siblings. All my other siblings sincerely turned out very well. They serve God, they love God, and all through unbroken followership of Jesus till now. I was the only one who being shipped out of that environment couldn't continue. That had that broken whatever. So I feel like we shouldn't neglect, folks, younger ones. But you see, at certain age, it then becomes irresponsibility to keep saying it was because of this, it was because of that, because we have come to the age of responsibility to take hold of our lives and make something. Because look at it now, when I became a Christian, if I was still there blaming my parents, I probably might not, take my own life in my hand and really shape it like the way it is. I remember my dad one day before he passed on, he looked at me, he said, "It's amazing what you have done with your life." He said, "It's amazing. It's amazing." So even he recognized that the person I later became wasn't him. He knew he wasn't the one that made me that. He knew he wasn't the one that contributed that part, to my life. So he said, "It's amazing what you have been able to do with your life." So I'm so happy and impressed. I know that. But if I was still there saying, because my dad didn't do A, because my mom sent me D, and that's why I probably would not have self-developed and brought myself, to a place whereby I could. So like I said, maybe when people are younger, they tend to think like that, but it's not absolutely true. If you keep thinking at that certain age, it has become irresponsibility.
Thank you so much, sir. That's so true. We must learn to accept responsibility. The family we are born into, irrespective, you get to a certain age of responsibility and accountability. You owe it to yourself to pick yourself up and develop yourself into who you want to be in the future. That's so profound. Thank you so very much, sir. I want to ask, what's your view about, you mentioned this before, but I want you to deliberately now speak about this. What's your view about making mistakes? How does it define a young person's journey?
Well, I would say there are two types of mistakes, really. There are lethal ones and there are less lethal ones. All right. And we need to talk about the two, because they are both important. And the reason I'm saying this is that so that while we are young, we are careful where we tread also. There are some mistakes that are easy to bounce back from, but there are some that will take you longer. But there's no mistakes whatsoever that we cannot recover from. All right. So let me first start by saying that there is no mistake big enough for you to be judged by God without being loved. God will love you. God will love you past your errors. God will love you past your mistake. God will, I'm telling you, whoever is listening to me, there is nothing. I think sometimes we are so full of ourselves. Well, I think it's pride. That pride, thinking my mistake is greater than grace. I think it's pride, your mistake, grace, your mistake is so small compared to what Christ has done. The Bible says, while you were yet a sinner, Christ died for you. How much more than now you are now a child of God? So, when you were really on the other side, God did everything to get you back. So as a child of God, listen, your mistakes don't define your relationship with God. God will love you. God will stay with you. But you see, there are physical consequences of some mistakes. That also, must be paid attention to. The spiritual consequences, is not much and all that, but there are physical consequences. I remember some of the folks that we actually were together who stepped into murder cases when we were younger. Now, first then some of them were arrested and sent to jail forever. Now, they can become a Christian and give their life to Christ. So the spiritual consequences is gone, but the physical consequences remain. I don't know, your salvation doesn't get you out of jail. So that's why I said some mistakes are lethal, some are less lethal. The spiritual consequences of these things are because one of the things I always believe when I go through life is balance, the balance of perspective on every subject matter and all that. With God, so some mistakes are lethal. Take, for instance, as a young lady, I want to beseech you, if you're struggling with your sexuality, try to speak, with somebody and seek help. Because if you don't, there are many things you don't understand. If you get pregnant at that stage and all that, and then you give birth to twins, all right? Now, the spiritual consequences is gone. God has forgiven you. But imagine JSS 2, JSS 3 or something, you have to deal with those kids. All your life, because and every now and then as you're making progress, you have to deal with the physical consequences of those mistakes, of those errors, and all that. These are the balanced perspective that I feel like every time I talk to younger people, I always say this to them. If they brought a lady to come and meet me who was struggling with, she's in JSS 2 and she's already smoking Indian hemp. And her brother brought her to come and see me. She was sleeping with almost like 4 boys and all that. And we sat down and the brother said, everybody I try speaking to her, she will not listen. And so I said to him, I said, bring her. I said, she will listen to me. They were like, Pastor, I said, don't worry, let her sit in front of me first. And then she came and then they dropped her and I said, everybody, excuse, leave me and her. And we were talking and we're gisting and all that. We were talking and I took her through life, my own story and everything like that and where I am. And I began to talk to her about physical consequences of things and spiritual consequences. And the spiritual consequences, when you give your life to Christ, are done away with. I said, but the physical consequences are dangerous. So I spoke to her about sexually transmitted diseases and all that. That look, you're sleeping with almost 4 boys. Your brother has caught you. I said, why will you be forgiven forever? I said, you know what? But you might start dealing with things that are not necessary at a tender age, HIV and other things. If you're smoking now, those things might affect your lungs and all that. I said, those are physical consequences of your error that I need to let you know, more than just the spiritual consequences. And all that. The spiritual consequences are done away with. Well, and then I poured love. I spoke to her. I gave her money and everything like that. 3 weeks after, the brother came to meet me and he said, Daddy, what did you do to my sister? I said, what? He said, she's born again. She's a different girl. She said, whatever. And I said, well, people need love. People need whatever. But there is no one so young also to. I said, someone, you treat her, because she's your sister, younger sister, you treat her like she's a dummy. I said, she can understand when you speak reason. I said, so what I did was I showed her love. I showed her love. And I also showed her reason. I showed her the trajectory of the path she was on. That this trajectory, when you're on a path, there is a location it will lead you. So I told her, see, this path you are on, this is the location it will land you. I said, but you can change the path now, early now, and then land in a totally different whatever. So I said, so that's why I said there are mistakes that are lethal, and there are those that are less lethal. And all that. So some errors don't go far and all that. I mean, you can, by salvation, it's easy for you and all that. But if you continue some things, and that's why I said this to say, if there's anybody struggling with anything, it's good you seek help early and know that, don't, especially if it's sexuality, that are whatever, because those things can put some things in your body that you might have to, even after salvation, you must still be dealing with, and start believing God for healing of your body because of some of those things, those lifestyle, or maybe somebody gets himself into some things that are very whatever. I don't know if I'm able to communicate what I'm trying to say. That because there is the balance, of every conversation, and I think the balance of this conversation is the fact that there is no spiritual. I mean, God will love you till eternity and everything like that, but there is the physical side of our mistakes. Like I said, some of the folks that I know who are in jail now, some for almost 15, 20 years. I know that they are born again now in jail, but because of certain things they did, the law has not released them. I know that we're in faith for them to be released and all that. But so we must understand those two conversations, whereby there is the spiritual side, but there is also the physical side, and of some of those things, yes.
Thank you very much, sir. So if you've made a mistake in life, you're not condemned by your mistake does not condemn your life totally. You can come out of it. The reaching love of God can actually embrace you. Your grace, the grace of God is bigger than that mistake, but understand that there are physical consequences to every mistake that you make. So we should be weary of it. So and seek help. I love that you said that, because so many young people feel as though they are just in their own personal home. They are just in a world of their own. They feel they are the only, and it's a lie of the devil. They feel they are the only one going through. Every other person is out of their space. They are the only one that understands what they are going through. They are the only ones that can. So they try to self-help.
Which is bad.
Try to create their own solutions, which actually takes them deeper into these errors and mistakes. So be willing to seek for help. That's so important. You're a young person, you're going through certain things, and that's why I'm so persuaded that one of the things that the Silent Journals is doing is we were putting out personalities, people that you can talk to. Because I realized that we have a generation of people that they are so media conscious. They don't connect with human beings. They connect virtually. It has become so bad that you just want to live this virtual or real life.
Yes, ma'am.
Not knowing that, see, this life is so real. You can't afford to joke. It's so real. Human beings are real. Agendas are real. Kingdoms are real. You can't just see somebody and you just like the person's face and the person's dress. You must understand the influence, the inspiration. You must understand where the person is coming from. So that you don't attach yourself to something that at the end of the day, when you get to know the truth about what you're into, it's already too late. And that's why we're speaking to all these wonderful people like Pastor Olumuyiwa, so that you understand that There are people that genuinely care about this generation and are willing to share wisdom, principles, life-changing principles. They've been there, they've seen it, and they've triumphed, and they can share their stories and their principles with you. Thank you so very much, sir. I'm going to ask another question, but this has to do with moral decadence. You know, it's part of the things we've been talking about the fact that, you know, we have a generation of people that resort to self-help. There's so much, in fact, the height at which peer pressure as reason is greater than, I was telling somebody, I said, is greater than our times. You know, at least when my friends say something, back then when I was in school, I could still go back at my mom and say, Mom, you know what? Bimpe said this. But that's not happening.
Yes.
You know, you have children that have actually locked up. They believe they are fine. Their friends have told them, in fact, their friends make them know that talking to your parents or resorting to consulting your parents is weak. You're not, you should be, at what age? You're 12, you should be able to make your own decisions. Well, your mom is old school, your dad is old school. So we have this generation of people that there's so much moral decadence. You know, I was listening to Pastor Praiseful and he was sharing about some of the things he encountered talking to young people. And I for my own little experience, you know, I taught him in school for a period, and I realized that these younger people, oh my, they believe in themselves so much. Yeah. They believe in what they know, and technology has not made it easier. They feel if there's anything you need to know, just Google it. You'll find the answers. And while they are Googling at it, they are entering into territories, enchanted territories that they themselves cannot draw back from. They've gone so deep. They've gone into realms and things they're not supposed to go into. So I want you to speak about this prevalent moral decadence and the place of good morals. How do, as a young person, can you, in the midst of all that is going on in our environment, can actually stay true and say, you know what, I want to be a principled and a person. I want to uphold these values, that there are principles my life will be guided by. I want you to speak to this subject.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you for this. This is a vital question. It almost looks like every generation is dropping the ball lower and lower and lower and lower. Yes, like you rightly said, than, you know, in our own time, you know, and all that. But one of the things that happens is the fact that I think as a young person, you first need to repose some level of honor and trust in yourself. You know, and if you don't repose that level of honor and trust in yourself, whatever anybody does in your class or in your generation will seem trendy, will seem good. But when you repose some level of honor and trust in yourself, you know, what I mean by that is, I see trust, talking about believing in yourself, that look, I'm of a different breed, I'm of a different species. Our journey in life differs, so our road will be different, our ways will be different.
Yes, sir.
I know that. So where do I hope to land? You know, and as a young person, I don't think, you know, we are too young to ask this kind of questions, you know, especially if you're, except you're in primary school. And even if you're in primary school, you know, we can start wiring that into their mind. You know, that's it. The question is that, see, every influence, every behavior, every act leads to a certain end. You must know that. There is nothing, and that's why I spoke about the physical consequences of things. That in every road, there is no road that goes and never leads to a place. Every road and actions, behaviors, belief system, and those things, they are all roads that lead to a certain place. And so you need to ask yourself a question. These things that these boys are doing, these things that these girls are doing, where does it lead to? You know, and if it leads to so and so and so place, Is this where I also want to end? Is this where, and if you already can see the end, it helps to change the road. That I don't think this is where I want to end my life. I know that. I think that, this is the first question every young person, even should ask. If these people are doing this, this is a road. Every action is a road. Every behavior is a way that leads to a certain destination. And before I get on that road, let me ask where it leads. If I find out where it leads, then I can tell whether I want to go there. If it leads to the place of death, if it leads to the place of untimely death, pregnancy, I would like to call it cocaine and drug addiction, to evil and all that, I must know that, see, no matter how subtle, how beautiful it looks now, I shouldn't be on that lane, because the road is already predetermined. So I must have enough faith in myself to choose my own lane. I must have enough trust in myself to choose my own lane. And no feeling where I say, it might not be a popular opinion, but I think my lane most likely will be better than where these people are taking. And that is why I say, I believe that sometimes some children know what is, some youth know what is right, but they don't have enough faith and believing in themselves to follow that way. That's why I said, believe in yourself and faith is necessary. That sometimes they know what is right, but you see, you just don't have enough confidence, that enough faith, enough, belief to stay on your own path and on your own lane. You see, as I grew up, even as, remember when I gave my life to Christ, most of my friends were still cultists, were still whatever and all that. So there was this idea of, oh boy, come now, it's in the worry you, let's go. But as at that time, I'd seen clearly. So, I mean, come on, let's go and do this, let's go and do that. I said, no, I'm no longer doing that. Because now the prayer pressure was there. In fact, I remember some of them were telling me then that, see, you are just on sabbatical. You will soon return to our kingdom. That, that your sabbatical will soon be over. And all that it's okay. We're not going to fight you. We'll leave you to go on holiday. And all that. You see, the holiday now is almost 20 years plus now. And that sabbatical, it will never end. It's an eternal sabbatical with the Lord Jesus. Yes. But see, they never believe, because they felt like with such pressure on me, they will come and visit me. They will bring girls. They will bring all those things and all that. But you see, I finally found faith and believe in myself to take my own path. And I'm happy I did. So I think that, as a young person, that there is an inner voice, something very subtle, telling you not to follow those paths, telling you not to go with those people. And you must be strong enough to have faith in yourself and believe in that path. Because no matter how much good road we show a young person, if the person does not have enough faith to follow that path, they will still go with the flow. And so that's why I want you to, and I do this to my first daughter a lot. I always tell her, sometimes she goes like, they're not playing with me. And I'll call her and I tell her, say, don't worry, they don't have to play with you and all that. I say, you must realize that, life can be lonely and you have to play with yourself. And sometimes playing with yourself is the best thing you can do sometimes. In the sense that, because some of the people around you might not carry the same value as you are. So you might need to actually play with yourself in the sense that, and I say this to her, she's 8, and all that. And I'm always pumping that into her mind. And all that. So I feel strongly, that some of them know what is right, but you must have enough faith, enough belief in yourself to follow, that path, and all that. And I think second thing that I feel is also crucial, is the fact that before you follow somebody and all that, I think it's better you follow people who are who through their own journey have arrived at beautiful places in life. That's what I mean. So because your mates that you're trying to follow, that person is probably as ignorant as anything. But if you look ahead of you and see people who actually have walked some path, and you can see the peace in their journey, you can see the serenity upon their path, you can see the prosperity upon their life, I think you should ask yourself and say, when the Bible says, be followers of them who through faith and patience obtained the promise. So there is a set of people to follow. You should follow people who have obtained the promise of good life, not the promise of cul-de-sac deadness. People who got stranded in life themselves. So ask yourself, before I follow what these boys and these girls are doing, where is it leading them? And this other person who is older, because the beauty of following an older person is that your own future is their past. Where you're trying to get to is where they have left. You are trying to be there. They have left the place. So I think wisdom is to follow somebody who your own future is their past. And so it is easy for them to actually tell you about ditches, about pitfalls, about places, not to put your feet in, and to get. So moral decadence is easier when you follow people who stepping away from moral decadence is easier when you follow people who actually by walking through life have arrived at a reasonable and sensible place, rather than somebody who at your age, equal age, are deciding, to do some things, and they don't actually have, a sensible, outcome of their life themselves. Even they are experimenting with their life. Why would you want to actually, exactly go through the experiment, use your own life to do the experiment? Remembering what I said earlier on, every road leads to a consequence. Every path leads to a consequence, whether you like it or not. There are no spiritual consequences when, what I mean by that is that by the love of God, for as long as you stay with Christ, God will love you and all that. But some of those consequences, are major. So if you use your life for experiment, you might have to deal with a few things, in that place. Yes. I think those are two things.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Sam. At this point, I want you to just share with us some of the values that you uphold as a person, because one of the things that we're trusting that will, that will happen with this conversation is beyond those in this room. As many young people that will listen back to this, they can, through this conversation, just have a little glimpse into your life and say, okay, this man, I've heard about him, I've read about him, I'm listening to him. There are certain things he's doing or he keeps doing that keeps him on the path, this shining path, this glorious path of his life. I want to start doing it. What would be those things that you tell a young person?
I think before, if I were to cone down, on two things, I think the first thing is the importance of a vision and the necessity of companionship. I think those are two things that I will say. Vision is so powerful. When I mean vision, so as to make younger people understand, is the scope of where you see yourself, in life, eventually, and so I'm trying to say it in the most easier way for them to understand, the scope of where you think you will be, in the next 4, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, and when you are old, where you will eventually be. All right. I think that is so important because of that singular thing. It has affected my life a lot. There are things I don't eat. There are places I don't go. There are people I don't say hello to, because of where I have seen or that I'm going. All right. And one of the things that vision does for a man is that vision is like a sieve. When you make a sieve, is like when you pour some things and then you sieve out some things and then you retain some things. Visions are like some sieve, is a sieve. If a young person, I love what the scripture says. The Bible says, where there is no vision, the people will cast off restraint. It said they'll cast off restraint. That means there will be no discipline in their life. So a man of vision is a man of restraint. Is a man that understands boundaries. Is a man that understands that there are certain things that shouldn't partake of. Yes, because restraint means to be disciplined, and all that. So the first thing is for me is vision. This is one of my number one goals in life. I don't waste much time with a relationship that I don't see has my tomorrow in it, or I feel like I have anything, to offer the person in the person's tomorrow. I think it's a waste of his time and it's a waste of my time. I know that. So vision is, so as a young person, we're not too young to imagine where we want to be. And I'm not just talking about, ambitions and things like that, but rather where do you want to be? So if a man has vision, you will not compel the person to do some of the things that he should do. The vision is powerful enough to drive you. I know that the vision is powerful enough to take away some kind of company from you. That I have not seen this I've not seen myself, giving birth to a child in GSS class. So therefore, these are not the kind of girls to work with. I have not seen myself dying young, from lungs issues. So the smokers are not the kind of people to work with. I have not seen, because like I said, vision is a sieve. It will take away some kind of people from your life. It's like asset, it's like agile. It removes some people and all that. So I think vision is my number one, passion. Like I'm very particular, about, what I see and the people around me, in the light of what is ahead of me, and all that. And so if we don't deal with vision, then I always say this to folks: no matter the weapon of greatness you give a man, if that person has no vision, all those weapons will be wasted, no matter the level of us now. And yet, if the person has a vision, even if you don't give him the arsenals, he'll go and find it himself. So I think the first thing, before you can give anybody anything to work in life, first give them a vision. If you give them a vision, that is all. You go away. Every other thing they need to achieve it, they'll find it. But if they have no vision of greatness, and you give them the best messages on discipline, best messages on time management, best messages, on this, because they have no vision for it, there is no way they will waste all those things. So I think for the young person, one of the first things I want you to know that is necessary for you, have a vision of a beautiful tomorrow for yourself. All right, that will sieve out some kind of things, from your life. And I think secondly is the power of companionship. Companionship, many times we think that companionship means working with my mates alone. No, companionship, I'm talking about companionship, both mentorship, and because companionship are people who you are working with, both mentorship and then your friends. You see, whatever God has ordained for you to become in life, and whatever journey God has ordained for you, you will need people on that journey with you. All right, people that the Bible says, iron sharpeneth iron, so does the countenance of a man that of his friend. So you will need people whose countenance, can sharpen yours. I have some friends, in life and in ministry. They are not many, just a handful. I can count all of them on one hand, and all that. And what keeps us is the fact that, see, there is a place where we are all going, and that place we are going, has helped me, so we can actually have conversations and all that. If you play down on the power of companionship, you will take the wrong person into your boat, and you think it doesn't matter, and that person will sink your entire boat. So companionship is so very important that you don't bring a wrong person on your boat. There are always people that when they come onto your boat, they can sink. Your journey is sweet until they come on board. Your vision is safe until they come on board. They are actually, I call them, they are wrecking balls of destiny. They are wrecking balls of life, and so when you bring them on board, they can wreck everything, around you. So no matter the vision you have, one person can come on board, and then if you bring them too close, begin to talk you to a place whereby you forget where you started from, and you begin to move to another place. So I want to beseech you, know that, see, where am I going, number one, and number two, who am I going there with? So those are things. So where am I going, and who am I going there with? Those are two important things that I've held dearly, to my heart and everything like that. Under vision is God is focused for me, but I'm trying not to go into some of those details so that, I'm not too sounding a certain way that they can connect with them. That's why I'm just using, but of course, God is central to your vision. God is central to your life. All right. So where am I going, and who am I going with? I can say this: if you settle those two things in life sincerely under heaven, you have 80% of your life figured out. If you can settle those two things in your life, you have 80%. Where am I going? Where am I going is enough to make you read all the books in all the libraries. It's enough. It's because the hunger for where you are going will drive you to do things that are not convenient. When a man is consumed by vision and all that, I've often said it, I don't come from a very rich family. I don't come from a very advantageous biological family and all that. But because of where I know I'm going, it has driven me to read. It has driven me to learn new languages. It has driven me, not when life did not give me those things, I went looking for those things myself. Why? Because so when there is vision in a man's heart, and then you choose the right companions for that journey, you have 80% of your life figured out. The rest, 20%, will be just additions on how to manage greatness, manage success, manage whatever. But those two things will help you a great deal. Yeah.
Wow. This is so good, because those two things you mentioned, they're like headlines. Then there's a major part of it. And in fact, if you just take what you've just heard, it will so bless your life, in the sense that have a vision. You mentioned some things, and I totally agree. It said when you have a compelling vision, that vision will drive you.
Yes.
So even when you don't have the tools to make it happen, to look for it.
Yes, ma'am.
That is so true. So you don't as a young person think you have all the time in your hands. When you have a vision of where you're going to, you would move. You're always a man or a woman on a mission. You are moving. You're not sitting idling, that somebody's now telling you something that happened opposite your house. You are busy.
Yes, ma'am.
You are engaged.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have something doing. That vision they are so preoccupied you. And like you said, that one is another level of blessing. That your vision is like a sieve. It takes away irrelevancies from your life.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not found doing what is not in line with your vision.
Yes.
You're not found in the company of people that are not on your route. It doesn't happen, because your vision is like a vehicle. You're heading towards a destination.
Yes.
You don't have just anybody on board. It must be people that are going to arrive at the same destination with you.
Yes, ma'am.
So good. So every young person listening, this is so important. Pastor Who have shared with us some of the values and principles that is driving him as a person. And I can say boldly that I've seen some of these things in his life as a person. Some of us, we just study and observe from afar. But we know those that are actually walking the path. And we know those that we can say to you, follow them. Apostle Paul was bold to say, he said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. There are people who will follow, and you know that the destination is the same as the one that God has for you. So we were made bold to bring these people your way, so that you hear them and you listen to the words of wisdom. And I hope we're getting blessed. Now, I'm going to go to another question, sir. Similar to what we've spoken about before, but here deliberately talking about it. Now, there are many young people that they just tell you, what is it? Now, vision will go chop. Who vision helped? The whole essence, and the society has actually amplified it in the movies that it has been played out, in the songs that are being written and people listen to, that the end goal is money. That once you have money, you can be in command. That money answereth all things. That if you can have money, no matter how you got it, you are in command, you can fly, you are all right. So what do you say to this rich, quick, and hammer now mindset of young people?
Thank you, ma. I think every generation has its vices, and it seemed like our parent generation, sexuality was the vice. So you see that a lot of men in those generations have more than one wife, so have a wife at home and then somebody outside. And then it seems like another generation came and drugs was the vice. And I think another generation came and then money is the vice. And you must understand, as a young person, money is a beautiful servant, but a lousy boss. Is a beautiful servant to serve a purpose, but a very lousy boss. When you allow money money is meant for the boys' quarters of your house, not the master's bedroom. It should be behind, a boys' quarter serving the purpose of the house, rather than the master's bedroom commanding the entire house. All right, so let me begin by that, because that is a necessary mindset that you must first have. Where does money belong to? If you can't settle where money belongs to, all right, your pursuit of it will be wrong. All right. So if the definition of a thing is wrong, there's no way the pursuit of it will not be also wrong. And that's the first thing I want us to define. What exactly? Money is truly a tool. Money is a tool, but money is a tool to achieve, as it were, what's the best thing to say? money is not a tool of aggrandizement, and personal whatever. If it is, I want to ask you as a young person, why is it that some of the richest people in the world committed suicide? Some of the most wealthy, some of the most accomplished musicians shot themselves to death. Some of the most accomplished actors, I mean, at least two of my best actors of all time killed themselves. I was so angry with one of them. I wanted to go and beat him in his grave, because I mean, this guy was a fantastic actor, wealthy and rich and all that. Looked forward to every movie he acted. And the same thing for musicians. I mean, you look at whatever. So if money was all that it took, why do I have a lot of money and yet decide to kill myself? It is because you don't, and if you're still running that same race, it's because you don't understand, why are rich people still unhappy, in all of that? Why is it that, with a lot of wealth, yet people they are in divorce, they are sick, they are this. So it tells you that money really is not everything. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to say. If you don't define money correctly, your pursuit of it will be wrong. Money is good. Money is a tool. Money is an amplifier. It amplifies your personality. Money, if you're a bad person and you get money, you become more bad. If you're a good person, you get money, you become more good. Money amplifies the personality of the possessor and all that. So the first thing I want to say to you is understand that process is more vital, and not just process. What I mean is that correctness of process is more vital than the attainment of a thing. And I will tell you why. The correctness, because it's not just process, I'm talking about the correctness of process. Because the beauty of correctness of process in pursuit of money is that process and its correctness teaches you character before its attainment. And so if you bypass that process, you might get to the attainment, but you lack the character thereof. So the wisdom of the attainment is the fact that, while you are in that process, one of the beautiful things about correct process is that it takes away excesses from your life. I mean, look at someone like, as young as Mark Zuckerberg is. I know that very young child, at least, but you look at, even though we can't say much about his Christian life, but you are not hearing that he's the one sleeping around, killing people, and all that. As young as he is, there was a level that they went through to achieve that level of success. I see him talking to Senate of America, and I'm like, is this how old? This guy does not sound like his age. It sounds deeper than his age. Than whatever. Why? Because the process of wealth, at least to a certain degree, has helped him to learn a few things. So one of the things that process does for you is that process helps you to actually self-develop to handle, the weight, of money. When you see people who haven't gone through process and then you did jazz, you did internet fraud to get those things, the money might be in your hand, but you are not rich, because true wealth is in the mind. True wealth is in the mind. Yeah. Why? That's why the Bible says, I wish above all things that you prosper, even as your soul prospered, because your soul is your seat of your mind. When you prosper there, true prosperity is that then physical dimension will follow after. So, but when you give someone wealth without their soul prospering, those are the people you say money misroad. Because there is no equivalent of the wealth where the soul is concerned. So the soul, their mind can't handle it. I know that. And correctness of process helps you to be able to handle effectively that thing. When you see, money is a weapon. All right. When you give a gun, to a child who has not been trained to handle it, it can kill the child. When you give a child a knife, it can kill the child. As beautiful as money is, money has destroyed many people because they got it too early. Recently, I stumbled across a documentary, child actors who became, non-entities in adulthood. And I was shocked, at some of the people that when we were young, we saw on TV, And then they came into money, like is it Macaulay Collins or something like that? They that acted Home Alone, some of these guys and all that, and some of the guys that acted in Barney when in the early 80s, and some of those children actors, and how their life turned out terribly. They encountered money early in life, but there was no prosperity of their soul to undo those things. So early they got into drugs, to whatever. I saw some of their pictures. I was sad at what they had become. I was sad. In fact, a number of them had died from drug abuse, but they came into wealth very early, but there was no maturity to handle the wealth. And that is where process matter. Process matures you to handle your glory. Process matures you to handle your greatness. Process matures you to handle, as it were, the things, that the beautiful things that life, will bring your way. So I think this is a necessary, an important part, of this journey. Wealth is good, but you cannot get it, outside of the maturity of the soul. I am not against people becoming wealthy, at a young age. All right, if the requisite labor, if the requisite intelligence and the requisite emotional balance, is alongside. But without the requisite emotional balance, without the requisite intellectual development, without the requisite character, that money becomes a gun that you turn to your mouth. And I always call it financial suicide, as it were, prosperity suicide, whereby you are prospering, but that prosperity has become a gun in your mouth. And that is just a trigger pulled, and then the same prosperity. That's why the Bible says the prosperity of fools will destroy them. All right. So why would the prosperity of fools destroy them? Because they lack the requisite character to handle it. So I just thought to say, why shouldn't we run to be wealthy at all costs? Because you see, calm down. All right, money you will have. And all that, but let's us be more concerned about developing the character, the requisite, that is necessary. If money is all you need, then people who have it should not be killing themselves. If money is all you need, then people who have it should not, be unhappy. Money is not all you need. And, don't wait to realize that. The wealthiest man who had everything, I always say Solomon's life was different from Samuel's life. Samuel was born in the temple. He grew up is what you call a church boy, and everything like that. But Solomon was not a church boy, and everything like that. He had, having sex with 1,000 women, that is a feat that I believe is unbelievable for any human being. I'm having money and everything like that. And at the end of all of that, it's a vanity upon vanity. It's all these things, emptiness. So I don't think you have to learn it yourself. Somebody who has tasted it is already telling you that this thing is emptiness. Yeah. That the best of money is emptiness, the best of girls is emptiness, and the strongest of power is emptiness. Learn from him. Because if you try to learn with your own life, you might not succeed. You might not succeed in that lesson. You might enjoy yourself too soon. But somebody who touched all the girls across the world, touched the money, the best of money, power at the peak and the zenith of power, yet he said, let me advise you, having tasted everything on your behalf, it is all emptiness. It's all emptiness. And he said, after he has said, let me tell you, this is the summary of all things, that a man should seek God. That's the summary. And all that. So I feel like, Solomon has actually tasted it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, sir. So much wisdom shared with us. Money is a tool, but don't allow, in fact, that example you gave, I just kept thinking about it. Allow money to be at the boys' quarters of your house, not the master's bedroom. Wow. Yes. So instructive. It's a beautiful servant, but a lousy boss. You don't want to be controlled by money. You don't want money to be telling you the direction the life should go. Rather, you should be the one telling money the direction it should go. And the prosperity of your mind is the first point of call. And I love that you mentioned process. This rich, quick, now scheme is not right. It's not godly. It's destructive. It doesn't end well. And like you said, someone tasted it all. He said, see, this thing doesn't end well. Don't try it. On your behalf, I've tasted all on your behalf so that I can give you this testimony. It's all bad. So as a young person, please be committed to the process of your making. prosper in your mind. Let your mind be developed. Let your mind become that seed where all the capacity in you is built. So that when they take you anywhere, they strip you today of everything you have and take you to another place, you can reproduce the same life you are living.
Yes.
Yeah, because what they are not taking, they can't take what is in your mind away from you. They can strip you of everything you have physically, but they should not be able. That's why the prosperity of your soul is so key, so important. It's actually the real deal.
Yes, ma'am.
It's actually the real deal. If money fails and dollar collapse, naira collapse, everything is gone. You can't touch naira and copper. Will you stop existing? Will you stop living? We should think about those things. And it's important that the prosperity is in your soul. That's so good, sir. That is so good. Thank you very much. We're almost rounding up now. We have 2 more questions to go. And we just want to ask you, because in Flickers of Hope Foundation, we are so passionate about the place of learning, the place of education in the life of every man, every young person. It looks as if many young people are now far away from learning. They just want to, the presence of video creation, as beautiful as they are, and some of these other tools, have made it more difficult for our young people to actually commit themselves to learning. We want to ask you, sir, how has education shaped your life? What has that learning done for you?
Well, I feel, I think one of the most important things that can happen to a man in his life is education. And both formal and informal. Both formal, not both formal or informal, no, both formal and informal. Not all, the word is and, formal education. Let me say this to you. A human life is like a seed that is planted. And when the seed is planted, the quality of the environment that seed finds itself matters on how well that seed grows. And then now, some seed now have even a greater advantage, which is called fertilizer. And so when you put fertilizers, so let me first say that, so there is a seed that is sown, in a place whereby the environment is not good. Then there is a seed that is sown in an environment that is good. Then there is a seed that is sown in an environment that is good and then fertilized. Education is the fertilizer of the mind. It causes your mind to blossom in a way that there's nothing in this world that we can use to explain it. You see, without this fertilizer, there is no way your mind will function at a level, that it should function. Because the human brain is, somebody said many years ago, and I believed it. He said, when every one of us is born, he said, we are born with what is called a clean slate. Your mind is clean. It's called tabula rasa. Tabula rasa in Latin means empty, clean slate. He said, but as you begin to grow through education, things are written on it. Things are written on it. Things are written on it. An uneducated man is like a slate that has just 3 lines written. An educated man is a man who has like a slate full of things. And one of my professors used to say something in those years. He says, whatever does not exist in your mind, you can never use in your life. He said, only the things that exist in your mind are useful to you in your life. And he did an example to us in class that I never forgot. This is almost 20 years now that he did that example. And let me say, I want to use the same example I would do now. And if I say to every one of us on this platform now, and as a young person, and I say, please, when you get to your room, I want you to do paraminko. You will take paraminko, then you will pour it into gavamiki. When you pour it in gavamiki, then you will now actually use it on the wall to do zenzemiku. Now, you see, all these things that are said are useless to you because it doesn't exist in your knowledge bank. If something doesn't exist in your knowledge bank, it will never be useful to you in your life and destiny. What education does is that it supplies you with more tools of life to use. It makes sure that your slate is not empty, and it loads your slate. It's like when you see some journals, you will just see line 1, line 2, line 3. And you will see some journals that are full. You can pick several things from those journals. So you see, some people's lives are limited because of the limited things written on their tabula rasa. And some people's lives are full. Those people are more equipped. They are more tooled. You know, I remember there was a day I had a conversation with somebody, and sincerely, man, I knew that I wasn't tooled enough. And that was then that I knew that I needed to work on myself. This lady comes from a family of well-educated people. She told me about how her grandparent finished from Harvard and Yale. Her parents finished from Oxford, and then the kind of books they exposed her to. For everything she wanted to say, she had a right word for it. For everything she wanted to do, she knew how to do it. She was talking, and my age mate, in fact, I'm 2 years older than her, and I could tell I was struggling to catch up with her development. And I remember I said to myself, this lady is better tooled than you are. You need to tool up much more. And so I asked her what the kind of things she read, and she told me, and she didn't know why I was asking, because when I met someone that was operating at a higher level of tooling, I realized where I was. There were things that I would say, I would use one word to actually mean 3 different things. She had the 3 right words to say those 3 things, even, that she wanted to say, even though they sounded the same, but they meant different things. And I could see the way her life, the trajectory of her life. I knew greatness was on this woman's path and all that. Education is a tooling. Education is a fertilizer. Your plant can grow beyond, the environment. It can grow beyond the supply of water. It can grow beyond the supply of fertilizers. Let me say this to you. You can be basically educated, and you can be solidly educated. And all that. That's why I said both formal and informal. Formal are the ones that maybe your parents are able to give to you by education. Informal are the ones that you are able to push yourself to achieve also. All right. And let me say this to you, your informal education will play will be your edge in life, because at certain stage, everybody has the same level of education. We all have masters and all that. But after a while, what some people now did with their extra time, the extra they now did with their life, now begin to make them stand out from you. So that's why I said both formal and informal. The formal one is the education, the certifications. There are books you read that they will not give you any certificate for, but actually will be your advantage in life. Yes, there are lectures you attend, there are courses you will take online that they will not give you certification for, but will be your greatest advantage in life. So both formal and informal, are necessary for you becoming everything. Please listen again. If you are not going to go to school and you're not going to pay attention to education, you have reduced the amount of tools. It's like a plumber that does not have a wrench. It's like a carpenter that does not have a saw. It's like a doctor that does not have surgical equipment. And that is how it is. A man who is facing life without education, you have already limited the amount of tools that you can need. And there are some things you cannot do in life without proper tooling. And so you'll be looking at some people making some advances, some progresses. You will know that they have the same head as you are. You will know that they have the same capacity, but the tools that they have received are different from the tools that you have. All right. So I feel like that is a major part of what education will play in your life.
Yes. Wow. so good. So good. Education is tooling. Your toolbox must be full.
Yes.
I love that you use the example of the slate, and I so believe it too, sir, that we are all born with a clean slate. What you choose, the process you choose to submit yourself to, will determine what is written on your slate. And there's some people that actually submit themselves to funny processes. You could have a slate that that they wrote there.
Yes.
And it's full. But you have a tool that the words on it, the notes on it, they are meaningful. You enter a conversation with somebody, and that is what I usually say to people. He said, see, there's some things you don't spiritualize. God has given us all this talent to trade with.
Yes.
If you don't trade, it will show.
Yes.
It will show that you didn't trade. And
yes.
so education is like you coming to the earth and actually trading with what God has given to you. And the extent to which you trade, it will show. It will show. I'm so delighted and excited that you shared all this with us. And in closing, we've learned a lot in these conversations. I believe, in fact, in our chat box, we have other people just testifying to this, that this is profound. I want you to share with us some of the lessons in your journey that you've learned. That while you are, your journey is still on, but thus far on this journey, some of the vital lessons that you've learned.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. Many things, and but I think I'll just talk maybe three that I feel like are defining. One of the things I've learned, one of the number one things, don't do tomorrow what you should do today. For me, it's one of the most important things I've learned in my life. Don't do tomorrow what you ought to do today. Because the reason is that there are some things that are season and time bound. If you miss those times and those seasons, you will still try to do them, but you will struggle much more to do them. Let me give you an instance. Sometimes in December last year, I didn't like the way my house was, so I wanted to plant flowers. But it was not the season for flowers. But there was this cash on my hand that I did not want to waste it. So I got an horticulturist to come and do that for me. So I planted it. But it was actually something that was done out of season because it was Harmattan. In Ilorin, it's quite harsh, Harmattan-wise. So I will say this, you know what happened? I had to struggle hard to keep those plants alive. Sometimes I emptied almost a whole tank, in my own compound, just trying to wet them and 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 wet them. Why did that happen? I missed the rainy season. The rainy season in Ilorin extended to the November, October of that year, but I didn't plant in that season. I decided to plant out of season. So what the waters from heaven should have done for me, I had to do with my labor. I had to do with my cost. Now I have to pump water and pay extra NEPA bill. When there is no NEPA, I have to buy fuel in my generator to pump water. Now, all that I did at my own cost, which heaven will have done for me, because rainy season will have just done that, for me with ease. Don't do tomorrow what you should do today. It will cost you a great deal. It will cost you a great deal. Many times we are there doing, as it were, procrastination. Procrastination is not a good thing. Procrastination is you thinking that God has enough time to waste for you, to actually let you achieve what tomorrow, what you should be achieving today. All right. Please come back, please. Sorry, the room service. I traveled. I'm at our Ibadan place, so just I'm at a hotel. So I think the room service guys were disturbing me. So and yeah, so so I noticed that every time you miss a season, it is not that you've missed it totally. You might still be able to catch up, but you will probably have to do ×3 or ×4 to achieve the same result when you could. Now, the beautiful thing is rainy season. I even don't remember to water those flowers, but they are growing now by themselves. Sometimes I wake up, I will see them, they've grown so much. I'm like, I'll have to call somebody, come and please, because now in their time and their season, please, I beseech you as a young person, don't do tomorrow what you should do today. It might be too costly. It might be too costly. It might be too costly. All right. That's a very, very, vital one. Number 2 is, start your journey early because it's very far. Start your journey early. Sincerely, that's number 2 for me. Start your journey early. Thank God the church I pastor started quite early, but you know what? Somewhere in my mind, I still always feel I wish I started earlier. Yeah. I still always feel I wish I started in my 20s. I know that I really wish I did. Because I'm not regretting. I'm just saying that if I were to choose again, I would go back and do it in my 20s. You know, I started pastoring very early, but the ministry I started, that God told me to start, that one I started, you know, in my 30s. All right. So, but I'm saying that, see, the journey is long, start early. And let me say this to you, is that whenever you start, that's when time starts counting. What you have not started, you know, time doesn't start counting. All right. So if it takes 10 years to break into greatness, whenever you start your journey, that's when the 10 years start counting. All right. So yeah. So if it takes, you know, 20 years to break, because God has a way of allotting time to things, you know, I know that. So if it takes, you know, I was reading a book many years ago by Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers. And Malcolm Gladwell said that in the history of everything in this world, everyone called a genius had to rehearse 10,000 hours in order to become a genius. It's a minimum. And he said by study, actually, he said everybody that they have called a genius, and he went from geniuses of chess, geniuses of computer, he said minimum 10,000 hours they actually put in their job before the world could call them geniuses. And he spoke about Bill Gates, and he had interview with all these guys. I mean, you can get the book, The Outliers, is, you know, and everything like that. He had interview with many of them, and he could prove that only 1 or 2 people did it in less than 10,000 hours, and they did it in 9,000 plus. It was just maybe 2 hours short of 10,000 hours. Now, I want to say this. Whenever you start your journey is when your 10,000 hours starts counting. If you start your journey at age 40, your 10,000 hours starts counting at that. If you started at 50, it starts counting. So start your journey early, because the journey is long. I know that, start it early. Your journey is long. Start it early. Don't, you know, and that also links me to the first one, you know. So don't do
tomorrow.
Don't do tomorrow. Start, you know, you are not too young. If God has called you into something from campus, if you feel like you want to be an entrepreneur, start selling whatever you want to start selling from campus. Just balance it well. If God has called you into ministry, join a fellowship and serve with all your heart. You know, whatever it is that you feel, you know, start early. Start early. The journey is long. The hours of greatness start counting when you finally start. You know, not when you start imagining. When the hours of greatness will start counting when you finally start. So some people become great at 70. It is not that 70 years is what it takes to be great. If they started at age 20, they will have been great at maybe 40. It's just that, see, life actually stays true to the timing. So I want to beseech you, you know, start early. And the last vital thing is that, see, don't work alone. Don't work alone. You need a mentor. Don't work alone. These are 3 vital things that I've learned in my life. Don't work alone. You know, you need a mentor. I cannot exaggerate and overstate, you know, the place of mentors in my life. I know that, you know, the mistakes I have made in life after I started following my mentors have become so minimal. You know, I mean, sincerely, I mean, I sat with somebody and he asked me, he said, Citizens of Light Church will be 10 years this December, thereabout, or at least we'll be celebrating our 10 years this December. And he said something to me. He said, what are the mistakes you have made? When I told him the mistake, this is a senior minister, the mistakes I've made and all that. And he said, is that all? Because I could only remember one in 10 years. And that one he said, that's not a mistake. He said, that is an administrative glitch. He said, administrative glitches are not mistakes. He said, because even when you're 50 years old, you still be making an administrative glitch. That's normal. When you budget, you know, 50,000 for something, and then you finally end up spending 350,000. That's the mistake I made. I budgeted 500,000 for a particular project that I ended up spending almost 1.5 million. So that's an administrative glitch. I said, that's the only one I can remember. And he said, wow, if that's what I said, he said, then God has been good to you. And I said to him, thank you, sir. It is because of people like you that I don't have many and all that. So my mistakes in life has been minimal because for me, I don't want to learn by experience. No, I want to learn by, if I want to learn by experience at all, let it be by somebody's experience, not mine. You know, so it's okay to learn by experience, but learn it by somebody's own, not your own. You know, so I've learned.
Actually.
Yes, it's cost. Like somebody said, they said experience is the best teacher, but can you pay the school fees? Because every teacher must be paid the school fees. So if experience is the best teacher, the school fees is too expensive. I can't afford it, and all that. So I think these are two things, that I've learned, don't do tomorrow what you do today, start your journey early because it's fun. And then don't walk alone. So those are things that I've learned, and that's helped me a great deal. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so very much, sir. It's been such a pleasure and a delight having this conversation with you today.
Thank you, ma.
Wisdom you've shared with us, life principles are truly transforming. And we just want to say thank you. Now, for every young person listening, we can make bold to say, the people that we bring your way are people that, under God, they've been tested and trusted. There are people that we can say follow and will close our eye, won't bat an eye about them, because the integrity of their work and the path in which they are following has been consistent over the years, and we can say they are truly walking the path. Please make use of these wise words. Like Pastor Olumuyiwa said, if experience is a great teacher, you don't want to pay the school fees. It's expensive. It's costly. That's why you need to follow men that you can trust. And you can trust under God to say that they will lead you actually in the path of life. And these are the people that will bring in your way. Pastor Olumuyiwa, thank you so very much. Words are not enough to express our gratitude for this time out with you today. We just want to say thank you very much for the investment of your time. We thank God for the gift of your person, and we're truly grateful. And we know that the future is indeed bright. We know that you are indeed a general in this time, and God is using you to mentor a lot of young people and continue to use you. Thank you so very much. For everyone, please just say thank you very much, Pastor Olumuyiwa, in the chat box.
Thank you.
And let's just say thank you to him. Thank you so much for coming out this morning. We didn't even know you were away, and you still graciously stay true to the time. Thank you, and God bless you. Everyone in the room, thank you for the investment of your time. This is the April edition of Silent Generals. Will come your way again next month, bringing you another fantastic personality, and we'll be gleaning wisdom together. Thank you, Pastor Olumuyiwa. Thank you, everyone in the room. You have a lovely weekend.
All right, ma. All right, ma.